The phone in front of us today costs a whopping $2,500. The Sony Xperia Pro. No extra numbers, no really long name, just a really long price tag. This might very well be the only real professional phone in existence. And for that price, it better be. Inside the box we get a USB-C cable, 18-watt charging brick, and some corded headphones that have a headphone jack. That right there might be worth $2,000 to some people. It's always a little annoying when the charging cable that's included with the box is the short and stubby little guy that can barely reach anything. Personally, for the last 3 years, I've been using one of these super long 6-foot USB-C cables next to my bed from my channel sponsor Anchor, and it's pretty amazing. Right now you can get 2 of these super long 6-foot USB-C cables with a lifetime warranty for just $15 at the link in the description. I'm not sure if that price is a typo or not, but you might want to jump on it before Anchor notices what they've done. At $2,500, this is one of the most expensive phones we've ever tested here on Jerry Rig Everything. It's definitely a professional price tag, and while I am, indeed, a professional, I don't think I'm quite the type of professional this phone was built for. Let's get started. Right off the bat, the first thing I notice about this phone is that it feels and looks like it's sitting inside of a built-in protective case. It's got a lightweight textured plastic exterior. The second thing I notice is the screen. This is one of the only phones in existence with a 4K resolution display, which is pretty awesome. I'm able to see these tiny footprints in the snow or the detail on the trees without the pixels getting in the way. It's pretty incredible. The Xperia Pro display is 40% more detailed than an iPhone 12 Pro screen. With a screen this nice, it would be a real shame if someone scratched it, but I'll take one for the team. If you listen really closely, you can also hear that there's no camera bump on the back. The Xperia Pro is primarily designed to be a second monitor for the Sony DSLR camera, while at the same time using its 5G internal antennas to livestream or upload the high-quality imagery to the internets, which is a unique combination of characteristics. We'll talk about that more in a second, but the important thing is that the Gorilla Glass 6 scratches at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7. The display is also super long with its 21:9 aspect ratio, and up here at the very top it has an 8-megapixel selfie camera tucked into the bezel, right there next to the earpiece slit. The earpiece doesn't have any exterior grills. The sides of the phone are more rugged than usual and are made out of a hard, rough, textured plastic. You might have noticed that there's also a plethora of buttons along the side. The bottom button is a textured camera button that can activate the camera to take pictures, just like a shutter button. Right above that we have a programmable button that can activate any app or start up its external monitor features, both of which are made from metal. Above that we have the recessed power button, which also doubles as a fingerprint scanner. We'll get back to that. Then up top we have the volume rocker, which is also made from metal. The Xperia logo is just overlaid and painted onto the plastic and will probably eventually rub off in your pocket. The Pro part of that logo is inlaid 3-dimensionally and is the only part of the branding that won't rub off on its own. Up at the top of the phone we do have that headphone jack. It's kind of strange that in order to get a headphone jack on your phone these days, you either got to spend $2,000 or $200. The right side of the phone has no buttons, just more textured plastic. It does have a SIM and SD card tray that does not need a removal tool. It can pull out with just your fingers. It makes it much easier to swap memory cards, which is a pretty professional feature. You might also have noticed that this phone has an IP rating of IP65/IP68. Kinda strange. And that's because down here at the bottom, things start getting weird. Alongside the normal USB-C port, there is a full-on micro HDMI port. This is how the Xperia Pro gets its high-quality 4K 60fps footage, imported from the full-frame DSLR for streaming over 5G. If you understood all that, congrats on being hip lit with your Gucci on fleek. And if you're a little lost, well, there's always bingo night. Long story short, this phone is IP68 when the flap is closed, and when it's open, it's only IP65, so be careful. On the back of the Xperia Pro, it does have some cameras of its own, a 12-megapixel telephoto lens, a 12-megapixel wide-angle lens, a 3D time-of-flight depth camera, and then down at the bottom we have the 12-megapixel main camera. Nothing super crazy, special, or out of the ordinary, but Sony is really good at making cameras. It's kind of their thing. The NFC pad is located in the center of the back panel, right underneath this symbol here. There is no wireless charging. Now, Sony has been around for a really long time. They are one of the largest companies in the world. They've got their logo subtly recessed into the back of the phone. One of Sony's very first products they ever made was a transistor radio back in 1955. Then in 1957, they made the world's smallest portable radio that really took off, putting Sony on the map. The name Sony is derived from the Latin word for sound, which makes sense since they were, making radios. Before all that, though, one of their very first products ever was a rice cooker, which is what you see here. Bet you didn't see that one coming. Personally, I for one am glad Sony branched out and explored new markets. The back panel of the Xperia Pro does look to be glued down and is water resistant. Sony phones are normally notoriously difficult and complicated to take apart, but maybe this time will be different. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the teardown. The screen is still my favorite part of the phone. With 10 bits of color and 4K resolution, it all sounds super impressive, until you remember that last year's Xperia 1 Mark II also had a 10-bit 4K display, and it only cost $1,000. This might hurt Sony's feelings, but I think that if you don't need the very, very specific ability to live stream Bingo Night in full-frame 4K 60 FPS, then last year's Mark II is definitely the better choice of cell phone. The OLED does last 25 seconds under the heat from my lighter though. Finally, the Xperia Pro does have a side-mounted capacitive fingerprint reader. I've already scratched it once, and for the most part it still works to read my finger. If I add a few more scratches after the fingerprint is set, it still manages to function most of the time, just not all the time. Finally, the bin test. I'm a big fan of the rugged design on this Xperia Pro. The recessed camera lens and textured plastic back make for a much more durable phone design, with less exposed glass parts to break. Structurally, when bent from the back, there is a slight curve to the phone, which, since it's so long, it's kind of expected, but it does lock out and doesn't break. When bent from the front, we get the same thing, a slight bend, but the $2,500 smartphone holds strong and stays in one piece. Not too shabby. Interesting how the most rugged-looking phone that we've tested in quite a while is also the most expensive by far. It's like a sleeper phone. Moral of the story though, if you really need a 4K display, just grab last year's Xperia Mark II. The rest of us will be just fine with all the other phones that have professional in the name but are actually just pretending. The people this phone was really built for are probably all still out there working right now. While you're watching this video, they're out there being all professional and stuff with no time for the internet or a computer. Workaholics. Let me know what you think. Would you ever use a phone like this? Come hang out with me on Instagram and Twitter, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks, for watching. I'll see you around.